Consider for a moment that there are infinite versions of you experiencing infinite versions of your life in parallel dimensions of possibility. One version where you have already achieved all your goals. Another where you live in total abundance. Another where you experience unconditional love. And yet another where you fully manifest your unique gifts in the world. And consider that all these versions are equally real and accessible. You just need to discover how to tune into the right frequency to connect with them. What if I revealed that what separates your current life from the life of your dreams is not a matter of years of hard work, dramatic transformations of circumstances, or even developing new skills? What if this separation were merely a matter of vibrational alignment, calibrating the frequency of the timeline where that life already exists? Now consider that you can cultivate what I call quantum certainty, a quality of consciousness that not only believes your desired reality is possible, but recognizes with absolute conviction that it is already yours, already exists, and is already manifesting through your experience. That this certainty is not based on external evidence but on direct perception of quantum truths about the nature of reality. For years, you may have sought to manifest transformations in your current life, operating within the constraints of your present timeline. But what would happen if you discovered that it is much more efficient to migrate to a completely different timeline, where the life you desire is already your natural reality? This insight not only revolutionizes how you approach manifestation, but also clarifies why traditional visualization and affirmation techniques often generate limited results. They seek to alter your current timeline instead of accessing the timeline where your desires are already reality. In the next few moments, we are going to investigate what timelines are and how they operate, how to recognize and access your highest timeline, what quantum certainty is and how to cultivate it, and most importantly, how to use this alignment to convert infinite possibilities into the specific reality you most desire to experience. Prepare yourself to expand your understanding about the nature of time and possibility. Prepare yourself to discover that you have much more power over your life experience than you ever imagined. And prepare yourself to learn how to become the conscious navigator of your own journey through the infinite dimensions of possibility. To truly understand how to connect with your highest timeline, we first need to unravel the quantum nature of time and how multiple realities exist simultaneously in what physicists call the field of infinite possibilities. Because time is not linear as our everyday experience suggests, it is multidimensional, with infinite variations of each moment existing in parallel. Envision time not as a straight line from past to future, but as an infinite ocean where all possibilities exist simultaneously. Each choice you make, each thought you create, each emotion you feel connects you with a specific current in this ocean, a particular timeline that contains experiences corresponding to your current vibration. Your current timeline is simply the sequence of experiences you have accessed based on your habitual patterns of consciousness. But there are infinite other timelines available, some where you are more prosperous, others where you are healthier, others where you have more harmonious relationships, and still others where you fully express your creative potential. These timelines are not daydreams or distant future possibilities. They exist now, in this moment, as complete and fully formed realities. The version of you that lives the life of your dreams already exists, is already experiencing that reality, and already possesses everything you desire. You just need to learn how to align your consciousness with the frequency of that version of you. Think of timelines like radio stations. All stations are broadcasting simultaneously, but you can only hear the one your radio is tuned to. Similarly, all versions of your life are broadcasting simultaneously, but you only experience the one your consciousness is aligned with. What determines which timeline you access is your vibrational signature, the specific energetic quality that emerges from your thoughts, emotions, beliefs, expectations, and most fundamentally, your identity. When you transform your vibrational signature, you automatically align with a different timeline. This explains why seemingly minor adjustments in consciousness can occasionally trigger complete revolutions in life experience. You're not progressively refining your current reality. You're making a quantum leap to a totally different reality that already incorporates the transformations you seek. Your highest timeline represents that dimension where you operate from your most genuine and unlimited essence, fully channeling your unique talents, enjoying prosperity in all aspects, and impacting the world in ways that generate profound personal fulfillment. This timeline is not an unattainable illusion. It is a valid quantum probability that remains perpetually accessible. The secret to reaching this highest timeline lies in building what I call quantum certainty, a mode of knowing that goes beyond faith or expectation. Quantum certainty represents the immediate perception that your desired reality already has concrete existence and already belongs to you. It is not an effort to persuade yourself of something doubtful. It is a clear vision of something that undoubtedly is real on the quantum plane. Such certainty does not derive from external proof or previous experiences. It originates from the immediate understanding of how reality operates at its most essential layer. When you truly assimilate that all probabilities coexist simultaneously and that you can connect to anyone through vibrational tuning, certainty emerges spontaneously. Quantum certainty exhibits multiple characteristic qualities. Initially, there manifests an atmosphere of placidity and firmness. You don't experience agitation or urgency about when your desired reality will materialize, because you recognize that it already belongs to you. There exists a harmony derived from understanding that you don't need to generate something non-existent. You just need to connect to what already has reality. Secondly, one observes the elimination of uncertainty or internal tension. When you possess quantum certainty, no part of your being questions whether your desired reality is viable or whether you deserve it. There's a total interior unification regarding the truth that this reality is already your property. Thirdly, there's a characteristic of spontaneity. Existing from your highest timeline doesn't feel imposed or fabricated. It feels like returning to your true home, like finally embodying who you were always destined to become. Fourthly, there is a perception of determinism. You recognize that your desired reality is not merely viable, but predetermined, because you understand that it already has existence, and that you are merely facilitating its manifestation through your experience. Fifth, there is a characteristic of anticipatory recognition. You experience genuine appreciation for the reality that is materializing, even before observing it integrally, because you understand that it already belongs to you on the quantum plane. Building quantum certainty is not a procedure of persuading yourself through repetition or determination. It is a procedure of eliminating the barriers that prevent you from identifying what is already reality. It's like polishing a fogged window. You're not generating the landscape. You're merely removing what prevents you from observing it clearly. The most frequent barriers to quantum certainty include social programming about how transformation should occur, restrictive convictions about what is viable for you, dependence on external proof as confirmation, and fusion with your current timeline as your only existence. Do you recognize any of these barriers in your life? The social programming, the restrictive beliefs, the relentless search for external proof. If you are ready to demolish these obstacles and allow quantum certainty to reveal itself, enabling your desired reality to manifest naturally, you need the complete guide for this journey of liberation. Get your The Vibrational Awakening, the Quantum Code of Manifestation from Quantum Labs, the definitive codex for vibrational intelligence, frequency command, and coherent manifestation with the universal field. Click now on the link in the first pinned comment and start aligning every choice with your unlimited potential. This transformation of perspective is what enables infinite probabilities to condense into the specific reality you most desire. When you operate from quantum certainty, you transform into a magnet for experiences that confirm and validate the reality you recognize as yours. Now let's investigate how to identify your highest timeline and recognize when you are harmonized with it versus when you have slipped back to less elevated timelines. Identifying your highest timeline demands developing sensitivity to recognize the energetic and experiential qualities that characterize different levels of probability. Your highest timeline possesses a specific signature that you can learn to recognize and consciously tune into. The first sign that you are harmonized with your highest timeline is a perception of simplicity and natural movement. When you are on this timeline, existence doesn't feel like a constant battle. Opportunities emerge organically, solutions sprout naturally, and you experience regular synchronicities that support your purposes and well-being. This doesn't mean you never face obstacles, but that you navigate them with grace and often discover they lead to even better outcomes than you had conceived. There's a characteristic of favorable momentum, where you feel that existence is collaborating in your favor. The second sign is a perception of profound genuineness. When you are on your highest timeline, you are not trying to be someone you're not or forcing yourself to fit into patterns that don't harmonize with your true nature. You are naturally manifesting who you are at your most genuine center. This genuineness reveals itself in how you interact with others, the decisions you make, the activity you perform, and even how you move through the world. There's a harmony between your interior essence and your exterior manifestation that generates a perception of integrity and attunement. The third sign is spontaneous prosperity in multiple dimensions of your existence. Your highest timeline is not defined only by success in one dimension, but by a general characteristic of prosperity that reveals itself as gratifying bonds, radiant vitality, flowing creativity, sufficient resources, and a general perception of existential richness. This prosperity doesn't come from excessive effort or sacrifice in other dimensions. It springs spontaneously when you are harmonized with the version of you that exists from completeness instead of lack. The fourth sign is a perception of mission and relevance. When you are on your highest timeline, you understand clearly why you are here and how you can positively impact the world. Your actions emerge from authentic inspiration instead of external obligation. There is a perception that your existence has value, that you are generating impact, and that you are realizing your unique potential in ways that are profoundly gratifying. The fifth sign is interior serenity and emotional stability. Your highest timeline is defined by a foundation of tranquility and balance that remains solid even amid challenging circumstances. You are not constantly reacting to external events or being dragged into unnecessary drama. There's a characteristic of centered presence that allows you to respond to situations from wisdom instead of reactivity. In contrast, when you have slipped to less elevated timelines, you can observe certain alerts. The first is a growing perception of battle and opposition. Existence begins to feel more arduous. You encounter more barriers, and you may feel like you're swimming against the tide. The second alert is a loss of genuineness. You may discover yourself trying to satisfy others, compromising your principles, or acting in ways that don't feel authentic to maintain harmony or avoid confrontation. The third alert is scarcity in various forms. This can manifest as financial worries, tense relationships, health problems, or simply a general sensation that there isn't enough time, energy, resources, or opportunities. The fourth alert is loss of direction or mission. You may feel confused about your priorities, unmotivated about your goals, or uncertain about how to contribute meaningfully. The fifth alert is emotional instability and increased reactivity. You may find yourself being more easily disturbed by minor events, having difficulty maintaining perspective, or being pulled into dramas that serve no one. To develop competence in recognizing these differences, practice what I call timeline monitoring. Regular check-ins throughout the day where you honestly assess which timeline you are accessing based on how you feel and what type of experiences you are having. Ask yourself, does this experience feel harmonized with my highest timeline? Am I functioning from genuineness or concession? Am I experiencing flow or opposition? Am I responding from discernment or impulsivity? Also, cultivate sensitivity for timeline shift moments. Specific points when you can perceive your energy and experience changing. This can occur after certain interactions, during certain activities, or in response to certain thoughts or emotions. Identifying these shift moments allows you to make conscious corrections to return to alignment with your highest timeline before small deviations become major misalignments. Also, keep a timeline log for a few days, documenting when you feel most harmonized versus less harmonized, and what elements seem to influence these changes. This helps you identify personal patterns that affect your access to your highest timeline. Remember, the purpose is not to never slip into lower timelines, but to develop sufficient awareness to recognize when this happens and competence to quickly return to alignment. Now let's investigate the specific techniques and practices you can use to consciously align with your highest timeline and develop the quantum certainty that makes this reality your dominant experience. The first fundamental technique for harmonizing with your highest timeline is what I call elevated identity visualization. This goes beyond traditional visualization of desired circumstances to focus on who you are in the timeline where those circumstances are already your natural reality. Instead of visualizing possessing specific things, visualize being the version of you that naturally inhabits this elevated reality. How does this version of you reflect on herself? How does she move through the world? What characteristics does she express? How does she respond to obstacles? What kind of energy does she radiate? Spend time regularly experimenting with this elevated identity. Practice thinking, feeling, and acting like this version of you, not as performance, but as recognition of who you really are when not limited by conditioning or current circumstances. The second technique is developing timeline gratitude, feeling genuine appreciation for the reality that exists in your highest timeline. even before seeing it fully manifested in your current experience. This is not forced or artificial gratitude, but recognition that the existence you desire already exists and is already yours at the quantum level. Practice regular moments where you feel deep gratitude for living this reality, for having access to it, and for all the wonderful experiences it contains. This gratitude creates a vibration of having instead of wanting, aligning you with the frequency of the timeline where you already possess what you desire. The third technique is what I call elevated timeline choices. This involves making daily decisions based on how the most expanded version of you would make these decisions, instead of how you have made decisions based on past patterns. Before making any significant decision, pause and ask, how would the version of me that inhabits my highest timeline approach this situation? What choice would she make? How would she respond to this obstacle or opportunity? Then, make the choice that is harmonized with this expanded perspective, even if it feels uncomfortable or unfamiliar at first. The fourth technique is cultivating certainty through quantum understanding. This involves studying and deeply assimilating the quantum principles that govern reality until you develop intellectual conviction that multiple timelines really exist and are accessible. When you assimilate that quantum physics demonstrates that multiple realities exist simultaneously, that consciousness influences reality, and that time is not linear, it becomes easier to develop certainty that your highest timeline is a real and accessible possibility. The fifth technique is the practice of elevated timeline action. This means executing physical actions that are consistent with living in your highest timeline, even when your current circumstances don't yet fully reflect this reality. If you are harmonizing with a timeline where you are prosperous, begin making financial decisions as someone prosperous would. If you are harmonizing with a timeline where you are healthy, begin caring for your body as someone truly healthy would. These actions not only strengthen your alignment with the desired timeline, but also transmit clear signals to the universe about which reality you are choosing to experience. The sixth technique is developing quantum confidence, a form of security that doesn't depend on external evidence, but on understanding how reality works at the most fundamental level. Practice trusting that your highest timeline is manifesting even when you can't see obvious evidence yet. Develop confidence that the universe is constantly organizing circumstances to support your alignment with this elevated reality. The seventh technique is what I call limiting timeline release. This involves consciously letting go of attachment to your current timeline, especially aspects of it that no longer serve your evolution. This can include releasing limiting identities, relationships that don't support your growth, or situations that keep you trapped in old patterns. Conscious release creates space for your highest timeline to manifest. The eighth technique is the practice of elevated frequency anchoring. This involves creating rituals, practices, or regular reminders that reconnect you with the vibration of your highest timeline throughout the day. This can include specific affirmations that reflect your elevated identity, music that connects you with elevated states, physical objects that symbolize your desired reality, or simply moments of conscious breathing where you realign with your highest frequency. The ninth technique is cultivating quantum patience, a form of waiting that is not passive, but maintains active certainty that your highest timeline is manifesting in perfect timing. This involves trusting the process even when manifestation doesn't happen as quickly as your mind would like, maintaining faith that everything is unfolding perfectly to support your highest good. The 10th technique is the practice of emerging evidence celebration, recognizing and appreciating signs that your highest timeline is manifesting, even when they are subtle or different from your expectations. Often, alignment with higher timelines begins with small synchronicities, subtle changes in how others respond to you, or simply a growing sensation that something positive is unfolding in your life. As you practice these techniques consistently, you will develop what I call timeline mastery, the ability to consciously navigate between different possibilities and maintain stable alignment with your highest reality. Remember, the goal is not to force your highest timeline to manifest, but to align so completely with it that its manifestation becomes natural and inevitable. Now let's explore how to integrate this elevated timeline alignment into your daily life and how to use quantum certainty to navigate challenges and accelerate the manifestation of your desired reality. Integrating elevated timeline alignment into your daily life requires a fundamental shift in how you approach each moment and each choice. Instead of living reactively based on past patterns or current circumstances, you begin living proactively from the reality of your highest timeline. Begin each day by establishing a timeline intention, a conscious decision to operate from your highest identity and access the reality where you already live the life of your dreams. This can be as simple as a few moments of connecting with the highest version of you and setting the intention to live from this perspective throughout the day. During social interactions, practice responding from your highest timeline. How would the highest version of you relate to others? How would she respond to conflicts? How would she express love and support? How would she establish healthy boundaries? When you interact from this elevated perspective, you often evoke the best in others and create experiences that are more harmonious and mutually beneficial. At work, align your professional activities with the energy of your highest timeline. How would the highest version of you approach your work? What contributions would she make? How would she handle professional challenges? How would she express her unique talents? Even if your current work isn't exactly what you want to do long term, you can bring it into alignment with your highest timeline through how you approach it and the energy you bring to it. In financial decisions, operate from the abundance of your highest timeline. This doesn't mean spending irresponsibly, but making decisions based on prosperity and abundance instead of fear and scarcity. How would the prosperous version of you handle money? What investments would she make in herself and her future? How would she balance generosity with financial responsibility? For health matters, align with the vitality of your highest timeline. How would the healthiest version of you care for your body? What choices would she make about nutrition, exercise, and rest? How would she respond to health challenges? When you care for your body from the perspective of your highest timeline, you often find that healthy choices become more natural and enjoyable. During challenges or difficult periods, use quantum certainty as your anchor. Remember that challenges in your current timeline don't invalidate the reality of your highest timeline. They may even be part of the transition process between timelines. Ask yourself, how would the highest version of me navigate this challenge? What opportunities for growth or redirection might this challenge be offering? How can I use this experience to align even more deeply with my highest timeline? To accelerate manifestation, practice what I call anticipatory living. Living as if your highest timeline were already your dominant reality. This doesn't mean pretending that circumstances that don't exist already exist, but embodying the energy, attitude, and perspective of the version of you that lives in this reality. How would this version of you feel upon waking each morning? How would she move through the world? What kind of energy would she radiate? How would she treat herself and others? When you live anticipatorily from this energy, you become a magnet for experiences that correspond to it. To maintain quantum certainty during periods when external evidence doesn't yet fully reflect your highest timeline, develop what I call understanding-based faith. This means basing your certainty on understanding quantum principles instead of just on sensory evidence. Remember regularly that multiple realities exist simultaneously. Your consciousness determines which reality you experience. Timeline shifts can happen instantaneously. Your desired reality already exists and is already yours at the quantum level. Physical manifestation is simply the last stage of a process that is already complete in more subtle dimensions. When you keep these truths in mind, it becomes easier to maintain certainty even when external evidence is still reorganizing to reflect your new reality. To deal with doubts or moments of uncertainty, practice what I call return to certainty. When doubts arise, don't fight against them or try to force them away. Instead, gently return your attention to what you know to be true about your highest timeline. Recognize that doubts are normal during transition periods, and that they don't invalidate the reality of your highest timeline. They are simply signals that part of you is still adjusting to the new reality. To accelerate the alignment process, create what I call supporting evidence. Small actions or changes that support your elevated timeline identity. This can include changes in your physical environment, your appearance, your routines, or your associations that reflect the reality you are accessing. These changes not only reinforce your alignment internally, but also send clear signals to the universe about which reality you are choosing to experience. Finally, practice transition gratitude, appreciation for the process of aligning with your highest timeline, even when it involves leaving aspects of your current reality that may have been comfortable or familiar. Recognize that transition between timelines is an extraordinary privilege that not everyone chooses to experience. Feel gratitude for your courage to grow, your willingness to evolve, and your openness to greater possibilities. As you integrate these practices into your daily life, you will discover that living from your highest timeline becomes increasingly natural and automatic. What once required conscious effort becomes your natural way of being. And as this happens, you will experience the extraordinary joy of living a life that is truly aligned with your highest potential and your deepest dreams. As we come to the conclusion of this exploration of how to align with your highest timeline and develop quantum certainty, it's important to recognize the magnitude of the transformation this understanding can bring to your life. Learning to consciously navigate between different possibilities is not just an advanced manifestation skill, it's an awakening to your fundamental nature as a conscious creator in a universe of infinite possibilities. This understanding reveals that you were never limited to a single version of your life, never condemned to repeat past patterns, and never needed to accept limitations as permanent. You have always had access to infinitely better versions of your reality through conscious alignment with higher timelines. When you master the art of aligning with your highest timeline, you discover that you have access to a power of creation that transcends traditional methods of change and manifestation. You are no longer trying to gradually improve your current reality. You are accessing realities that are already perfect for you. This discovery also explains why some people seem to live extraordinary lives with apparent ease. They don't necessarily work harder or have more talent. They are simply aligned with higher timelines where these extraordinary experiences are natural and normal. Your journey of elevated timeline alignment also serves a greater purpose. Each time you choose to access a higher version of your reality, you contribute to the elevation of humanity's collective consciousness. You demonstrate that radical transformation is possible and inspire others to explore their own higher possibilities. As more people learn to consciously navigate between timelines, we are collectively accessing higher versions of our planetary reality. We are evolving from a humanity limited by circumstances to one that consciously chooses its experiences. Remember that developing mastery and timeline alignment is a journey, not a destination. Be patient and compassionate with yourself as you learn to navigate this process. Each moment offers a new opportunity to choose alignment with your highest timeline. Also, trust that you possess the innate ability to connect with any timeline that resonates with your essence. Your highest timeline is not a privilege that must be earned, but a probability that is always available through conscious tuning. The cosmos is constantly supporting your journey to connect with more expanded versions of your reality. Each experience, even those that seem obstructive, can be an opportunity to refine your tuning and deepen your quantum certainty. Your existence is a field of infinite probabilities waiting to be explored. Each day offers opportunities to choose expanded timelines over restrictive ones, growth over contraction, and possibility over limitation. Tune into your highest timeline. Cultivate quantum certainty about your desired reality, and allow the most extraordinary version of your existence to manifest through your attuned consciousness. Your journey to your highest timeline begins now, in this instant, with your next choice to recognize that the existence of your dreams already exists and is already yours. Embody the certainty that transforms infinite probabilities into the specific reality your essence most desires. You possess the power to consciously navigate to any version of your existence that resonates with your soul. The cosmos of infinite probabilities is waiting for you to explore its most expanded dimensions. All you need to do is tune your consciousness to the frequency of the reality you choose to experience. Your highest timeline is calling you. Your desired reality is waiting for you. All that remains is the choice to tune into the most extraordinary version of your existence. Your journey to infinite possibilities begins now.